The document that changed everything was not a letter. It was not a confrontation. It was a single line on a court-mandated financial disclosure form, printed in a font so ordinary you could mistake it for a grocery receipt. Clearwater Savings Bank. Account holder Daniel J. Mercer. Balance $43,218. Rachel Mercer had been married to Daniel for 11 years. She knew his coffee order, his childhood nickname, the name of the dog he lost when he was 9. She did not know this account existed. Not the bank, not the balance, not one single deposit made across what the paperwork would later reveal was 6 years of quiet, methodical transfers she had never been shown. She read that line in her attorney's office on a Tuesday afternoon in March, and she did not say anything for a long time. The office was on the 14th floor. The window behind the desk looked out over the gray rooftops of downtown Columbus, Ohio. The attorney waited. Outside, a bus pulled away from the curb. That is where this story begins. Not with the divorce. Not with the argument that preceded it. It begins with a number on a page that rewrote 11 years in a single moment, and with a woman who had done everything she believed a financially responsible, loving partner was supposed to do, discovering that she had been operating on incomplete information for longer than her youngest child had been alive. This is the story of how $43,000 can mean so much more than money. Rachel Briggs grew up in Westerville, Ohio, about 20 minutes north of Columbus, in a house where the refrigerator had a grocery list magnetized to the door and the monthly bills were kept in a manila folder in the second kitchen drawer. Her mother was a dental hygienist. Her father drove a delivery truck for a regional beverage distributor. They were not poor. They were careful. There is a difference. By the time Rachel was 12, she understood the difference between a debit and a credit card. By 16, she had a savings account with $400 in it that she had earned babysitting and watching neighbors' dogs on weekends. Her parents talked about money at the dinner table, not as an argument, but as a fact of life, the way they talked about weather or school or the neighbor's noisy truck. Money was not a mystery in the Briggs household. It was a thing you understood, because not understanding it was dangerous. She studied accounting at Ohio State, graduated in the top quarter of her class, spent 3 years at a mid-size audit firm in Columbus doing commercial accounts before moving to an in-house role at a regional logistics company called Hartfield Distribution, where she would eventually become a senior financial analyst. Her salary when she met Daniel was $57,000 a year. By the time of the divorce, it was $72,000, with a modest bonus structure. She was the kind of person who color-coded her budget spreadsheet and also knew it was a little much. She kept a running total of the household's net worth in a shared Google sheet and updated it on the first of every month. She made her lunch most days. She had one credit card, a low-rate rewards card with a balance she paid in full every month without exception. She also, and this is the thing her friends remembered most clearly, trusted people completely once she decided they were worth trusting. Not naively, deliberately. It was a choice she made, a philosophy almost. She had decided somewhere in her 20s that the cost of treating everyone with suspicion was higher than the occasional cost of being wrong about someone. For most of her life, this had served her well. She met Daniel Mercer at a work event in the fall of 2009. He was there with a college friend who worked at Hartfield. Daniel was not in finance. He did project management for a healthcare software company called Vantage Systems. He was calm and precise and funny in a dry way that did not demand you laugh at the right moment. He was 31. She was 28. On their third date, he told her exactly what he earned. $64,000 a year plus occasional project bonuses. He said it the way you might say what you had for breakfast. No embarrassment, no performance. Rachel had never dated a man who told her his salary on the third date without being asked, and she found this so disarming that she told him hers. They were compatible in a dozen small financial ways. Neither carried consumer debt. Both had retirement accounts with modest but consistent contributions, Daniel through his employer's 401k, Rachel through a combination of the same, and a Roth she had opened herself at 26. They both kept 3 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. When they started talking about moving in together, the financial conversation was honest and low drama. Split rent evenly, keep separate checking accounts, open one joint account for shared household expenses. Groceries, utilities, insurance, the occasional home repair. They agreed on a monthly contribution amount that reflected both of their incomes and revisited it every 6 months. It worked. For years, it genuinely worked. They married in June of 2012, bought a 3-bedroom house in the Clintonville neighborhood of Columbus in 2014 for $212,000. Their mortgage payment was $1,140 a month. They contributed equally, drawing from the joint account. They had their first child, a daughter named Piper, in 2015. Their second, a boy named Owen, in 2017. The joint account expanded. Childcare, diapers, pediatrician copays, school supplies. Rachel tracked all of it in the spreadsheet. She also tracked both their individual accounts at a high level, not the line items but the overall balance trajectory, because she believed in understanding the full picture. Daniel's individual account was with Midwest First Bank. It tended to sit between $4,000 and $7,000, which made sense given his salary and spending habits. It was the account where his direct deposit landed. He transferred his contribution to the joint account from there every first of the month. She checked it maybe once a year, not to audit him, to update the net worth spreadsheet. This is the detail that would matter later. Daniel was a good father in the ways that are easy to see. He made the school drop-offs on his flexible days. He taught Piper to ride a bike in the parking lot of a nearby church, which was wide and flat and emptied out by Saturday afternoon. He was patient in a low-key, undemonstrative way that Rachel had always appreciated. He was not the kind of father who performed fatherhood. He was just present. He was also, she would later understand, carrying something he had never told her. She first noticed a shift in his mood around the spring of 2017, just before Owen was born. She attributed it to the stress of the pregnancy, to the demands of his job, which had grown more complex as Vantage Systems expanded their product suite, and Daniel's team grew to 12 people. She noticed he checked his phone more frequently at night, that he sometimes went quiet in the middle of conversations in a way he hadn't before. She noticed he started going to bed earlier than usual and was sometimes already awake when she got up at 6. She asked him once directly in the kitchen on a Sunday morning whether something was bothering him. He poured his coffee, turned to her and said that he was fine, he was just tired, that project launches were brutal and he'd feel better once Owen was born. He said it with his eyes on her face and his voice completely level. She believed him. She believed him because she had decided he was worth trusting and because nothing about their finances indicated otherwise. The joint account was healthy. His individual account, on the brief occasion she glanced at it updating the spreadsheet, looked like it always had. The mortgage was current. Their savings rate was good. She had no reason to pull on that thread. But here is what she did not know. Could not know from the information she had access to. In January of 2017, Daniel had opened an account at Clearwater Savings Bank, a smaller regional bank with no physical presence in their neighborhood, one she would have had no particular reason to know about. The account was in his name only. The opening deposit was $300. The address listed on the account was his brother Marcus's apartment in Gahanna, about 20 minutes east of Columbus. In February of 2017, Daniel set up a secondary direct deposit split through his employer's payroll portal, not the primary split that fed his Midwest First account. A secondary one, automatic, invisible on his pay stub unless you were looking for it. $200 per paycheck, twice a month. $400 a month, moving silently from his employer's payroll system to Clearwater savings. This is where the story takes its first turn under the surface, where the architecture of what he was building becomes visible only in retrospect. $400 a month, $4,800 a year. Over 6 years, at a modest interest rate in a high-yield savings sub-account, he moved the funds to gradually. The math compounds toward a number, toward $43,218. He never told her he was doing this. He never mentioned Clearwater. He never referenced a second account. He never let the name appear on any document in the house, any browser history she might have encountered, any piece of mail. The statements were paperless. The mailing address was Marcus's. Rachel had a color-coded spreadsheet and a philosophy of trust, and she did not know any of this. In the spring of 2020, the pandemic reshaped their financial picture the way it reshaped almost every middle-class household in Columbus. Rachel's company moved to remote work immediately and remained stable. Hartfield Distribution was essential logistics, and they were busy. Her income did not drop. Daniel's company struggled. Vantage Systems lost 2 major hospital contracts in the first quarter, and by June of 2020, Daniel's role had been restructured. He was demoted in all but title, moved from team lead to senior analyst, and his salary was cut from $79,000, which he had grown into over the years, to $68,000. He told her about the salary cut. He did not tell her about the Clearwater account, which by this point held somewhere around $18,000. She remembers the conversation about the pay cut at their kitchen table on a Wednesday evening after the kids were in bed. She said they would adjust the joint account contribution proportionally, that it was fine, that she could absorb a greater share of the household expenses during the transition. He nodded. He said thank you. He looked at the table while he said it. She interpreted this as embarrassment, which it partly was. What she did not interpret it as was guilt, which it also was. The adjustment to the joint account contributions was handled through a new split they agreed on together, verbally, with Rachel making a note in the spreadsheet. Daniel would contribute $800 a month instead of $1,100, and they would revisit it once the job situation stabilized. His net monthly contribution to Clearwater did not change. Think about what that means. His household contribution dropped by $300 a month, which they absorbed because Rachel's income covered it. His private savings contribution continued unchanged. In a household where one partner was quietly being asked to carry more weight, the other partner was quietly continuing to build a separate reserve. This is not an accident. It is a choice made across months, made in silence. Rachel threw a birthday party for Owen in the backyard in August of 2020, despite everything. Paper streamers in blue and green, the colors he had recently decided were his favorites. A store-bought chocolate cake she let him help frost. 6 kids from his preschool class, socially distanced in that particular way that summer required, a sprinkler running across the grass. She has a photograph from that afternoon, herself and Daniel standing behind Owen at the picnic table, both of them smiling. She keeps it because Owen looks genuinely happy in it. She keeps it despite knowing what was already sitting in a bank account she had never heard of. The marriage did not end with a single event. It ended the way most long-term relationships end, by accumulation. By the steady addition of small distances that, one by one, feel survivable and together are not. By 2021, Daniel was quieter at home than she had ever known him to be. He had found another job, a senior project manager role at a different healthcare software company called Meridian Tech, at a salary of $82,000. He seemed relieved by the new role but not lighter, like a man who had put down one weight and immediately picked up another. She did not know what the second weight was. She assumed it was professional anxiety, the particular exhaustion of rebuilding credibility after being diminished at a company you had invested in. In February of 2022, he asked her to sit down on a Sunday evening after the children were asleep. He had made tea, which she noticed because he rarely made tea. He had made 2 cups, one for each of them. He placed hers on the coffee table in front of her. He said, "I think we should separate." She asked him what that meant. He said he thought their marriage had run its course, that he still cared about her, but that he no longer felt connected to their life together in the way a marriage required. He said he had been thinking about this for a long time. She asked him how long. He paused before answering. He said a few years. She sat with that for a moment. Then she asked him if there was someone else. He said no. She asked him twice more, different ways, and he said no each time, and she believed him because she was still, even in that moment, extending the trust she had always extended to him. She would learn later, from a source that became relevant only after the legal proceedings began, that Daniel had been in an emotionally close relationship with a woman he had met through a professional networking group. Not physical, by his own account. Close enough to matter. They agreed to try counseling first. They went to 5 sessions with a therapist named Dr. Kaur in Powell, a suburb north of Columbus. The sessions were civil and largely unproductive in the way sessions are when one person has already decided and is waiting for the other to catch up. Rachel participated fully. Daniel participated technically. He filed for divorce in October of 2022. The first time Rachel sat across a desk from her attorney, a woman named Cheryl Foss who had a reputation in Columbus family law for being precise and hard to rattle. The conversation was what she had expected. Asset division, custody arrangement, retirement account splits, the house, the mortgage balance, which was now down to $156,000, meaning the equity had grown considerably given what had happened to Columbus home values since 2014. Cheryl explained the financial disclosure process. Both parties were required to submit a comprehensive sworn statement of all assets, all income, all liabilities, everything. The form was called a statement of net worth in Ohio's version of the process. She told Rachel to pull together everything she could, every account, every balance, every asset. Rachel went home and opened the spreadsheet she had kept updated for years, the color-coded one with the monthly net worth tracker. She thought she knew every line in it. She had been the one who wrote every line in it. A few weeks later, Daniel's attorney submitted his sworn financial disclosure. Cheryl called Rachel and asked her to come in. It was a Tuesday in March, the office on the 14th floor, the gray Columbus rooftops visible through the window behind the desk. Rachel sat down. Cheryl slid a copy of the disclosure across the desk and pointed to a line near the bottom of the asset section. Clearwater Savings Bank. Account holder Daniel J. Mercer. Balance $43,218. Rachel read it twice. Then she looked at Cheryl and said, "What is this?" Cheryl said, "That is what we need to find out." The next several days were among the most disorienting of Rachel's adult life. Not because she had no money. She had her salary, her own savings, her retirement account. She was not in financial danger. What she was in was the particular kind of cognitive crisis that happens when a trusted record of reality turns out to be wrong. She went home that Tuesday night after the attorney meeting and opened the spreadsheet. She scrolled back through 6 years of monthly entries. Every first-of-the-month snapshot of their household's financial position carefully recorded. Daniel's Midwest First account, column G, typically 4,000 to 7,000, consistent, unremarkable. Not a single entry for Clearwater, not because she had hidden it, because she had not known to look for it. She sat at the kitchen table in the same chair where he had told her he wanted a divorce, and she did what she had done 11 years ago in her childhood home when something did not add up. She went back to the source. She requested 6 years of his payroll records as part of discovery. She requested the Clearwater account statements from account opening through the current date. She requested his employer's direct deposit configuration from Vantage Systems' HR department, subpoenaed through the legal process. What came back over the following 3 weeks assembled itself into a picture she could not look away from. The Clearwater account had been opened on January 14, 2017. Owen was born in October of that year. The secondary payroll split had been set up on February 1, 2017. The address on the account was Marcus's apartment in Gahanna. This is the moment in the story where the third revelation arrives, the one that reorders not just what happened, but what it means. Because the question Rachel had been asking since that Tuesday in Cheryl's office was, when did he decide to leave me? And the account at Clearwater answered it. Not in October 2022 when he filed. Not in February 2022 when he asked to separate. Not in 2020 when the pandemic reshuffled everything. January 2017. 8 months before Owen was born. 5 years before he said the words out loud. He had been preparing for the end of this marriage for 5 years before she knew there was an end to prepare for. The accounting of it is almost mechanical in its precision. $400 per month for 73 months, plus interest, plus a $2,000 lump sum deposit he made in August of 2020 that she could not trace to any income source she was aware of. The $2,000 deposit landing 4 days before Owen's birthday party with the blue and green streamers and the chocolate cake she had let him help frost. She thought about that Saturday afternoon, the sprinkler running across the grass, the photograph where Owen looks genuinely happy. What was happening in Daniel's mind when that photograph was taken? Cheryl told her the key legal question was whether the secret account constituted dissipation of marital assets, meaning money that should have been available to the marital estate, but was deliberately concealed and diverted. In Ohio, marital assets are generally defined as property acquired during the marriage, regardless of which spouse holds title to it. Income earned during the marriage is marital property. Direct deposit from a marital-era salary into a secret account does not transform it into separate property simply because the other spouse did not know about it. Cheryl said, depending on the judge and the specifics, this could be recoverable, all or most of it. But there was a complication. Marcus. This is where the threads begin to tighten, where the foreshadowing planted in the early facts begins to earn its weight. Marcus Mercer was 3 years older than Daniel. He worked in commercial real estate, primarily acquisition financing for small developments in the Columbus metro area. He and Rachel had always had a cordial but slightly formal relationship. He came to Thanksgiving. He remembered the kids' birthdays. He was not unfriendly. He was just slightly at an angle to her in a way she had never quite been able to name. When the discovery process reached Marcus's involvement as the named address on the Clearwater account, Cheryl began asking different questions. She asked Daniel's attorney why a residential address in Gahanna was on the account rather than the marital home in Clintonville. The answer that came back was that Daniel had simply used a more convenient mailing address. Cheryl did not accept this. She pushed for all correspondence related to the Clearwater account, including any communications between Daniel and Marcus during the account's existence. What came out of that request took another 3 weeks and a direct motion to compel before Daniel's attorney produced it. When it arrived, it included something Cheryl had not expected to find. In 2021, Daniel had transferred $15,000 from Clearwater Savings into a joint investment account held by Marcus's real estate business. Not a loan agreement, not a partnership interest. A transfer with a memo that said, "Hold for me." Marcus had parked the money in a short-term commercial real estate bridge fund that his firm used regularly. It had grown. At the time of the motion to compel, that $15,000 had become $19,640 inside Marcus's business account structure. Daniel had not listed this as an asset on his sworn financial disclosure. This was no longer a case of a secret personal savings account. This was a case of a sworn financial disclosure that omitted approximately 57% of a hidden asset pool. In Ohio, a materially false statement on a sworn financial disclosure is perjury. It is also, in a divorce proceeding, the kind of omission that tends to turn a moderately cooperative judge into an attentive and skeptical one. Cheryl told Rachel about the Marcus discovery on a Friday morning in June by phone. Rachel was at her desk at Hartfield Distribution at the time. She had been in the middle of reviewing a quarterly variance report, her coffee cooling on the desk to her left. She remembers looking at the variance report while Cheryl spoke and thinking, "I spent 11 years making sure our numbers were right, and this is what was sitting underneath them." She asked Cheryl what this changed. Cheryl said, "It changes the entire posture of his case. It also creates a problem for him that has nothing to do with the divorce anymore." The complication was that Daniel and Marcus had 30 days to respond to the motion that documented the undisclosed asset. Cheryl had filed the motion on a Thursday. Daniel's attorney had been served that same day, which meant that in 30 days, Daniel needed to either account for the money in Marcus's business structure or face an amended complaint that would allege willful concealment of marital assets under oath. His attorney would have advised him immediately that the exposure here extended beyond the divorce proceeding into potential perjury territory. And this is the part of the story where the complicated climax begins to close in from 3 directions at once. The first direction: Daniel's attorney contacted Cheryl on the following Monday to say that Daniel wanted to explore an accelerated settlement. He was suddenly very interested in resolving this quickly and amicably. He was proposing a full asset disclosure update and a revised settlement offer. The offer would include the $43,000 from Clearwater plus 50% of whatever the current value of the Marcus-held funds turned out to be after accounting for the investment return. This was a significant shift from his prior posture, in which he had been prepared to argue that the Clearwater account was partially separate property, because he had made the initial $300 deposit before a specific date he was trying to identify as a threshold. That argument collapsed the moment the hold for me memo surfaced. He had been trying to position a secret savings account as a financial planning measure, perhaps even as an account opened for the children's future. The Marcus transfer and that forward memo destroyed that framing entirely. The second direction, Marcus called Rachel directly, not through an attorney, not through Daniel. He called her personal cell phone on a Thursday evening while she was making dinner, Owen doing homework at the kitchen table, Piper watching something on a tablet in the living room. She almost did not answer a number she did not recognize. She answered it. Marcus said that he was sorry. He said it immediately, before she could say anything after hello. He said he had not fully understood what Daniel was doing when he agreed to use his address and hold the transferred funds. He said he thought it was a personal savings arrangement, that he had not known Daniel was planning to use it in a divorce context, that he had not known the account had been hidden from her. Rachel stood in her kitchen with a wooden spoon in her hand and listened to her brother-in-law apologize. She believed the part about not fully understanding. She also believed he had made a choice not to ask questions that might have required him to refuse. There is a version of complicity that looks like ignorance, because it is much more comfortable to look like ignorance. She said, "Marcus, I need you to talk to my attorney, not to me." He said he understood. She hung up. Owen asked who that was. She said it was a wrong number. Owen nodded and went back to his worksheet. The third direction arrived in the form of a deadline that existed entirely outside the divorce proceeding. Cheryl learned through the discovery process that Daniel's employer, Meridian Tech, had a strict ethics policy that required employees to disclose any ongoing legal matters that might reflect on their financial integrity or involve the company in a legal proceeding, particularly because the company handled healthcare financial data and was subject to regulatory compliance requirements. Daniel had not disclosed his divorce proceeding to HR, which was not itself a violation. But the perjury exposure attached to the undisclosed asset was something that, if it became part of a public filing, Meridian Tech's compliance team would almost certainly become aware of. Daniel knew this. His attorney knew this. The 30-day response deadline on the motion was also, effectively, a deadline on how long Daniel could keep the perjury exposure from becoming a matter of public record. A settlement reached before the motion was fully adjudicated would be filed as an agreed judgment rather than a contested ruling, which would be quieter, less detailed, and significantly less damaging to his professional standing. He had 30 days. The Marcus funds needed to be accounted for and returned to the marital estate as part of a new disclosure. His employment situation was contingent on this not becoming a headline, even a small one, in a Columbus court filing. Rachel sat with Cheryl in the 14th floor office on a Wednesday afternoon with 12 days left on the deadline clock, and they went through the proposed settlement term by term. The house would be sold. The proceeds after the remaining mortgage balance, after closing costs, after both parties' contributions were calculated, would be split 60-40 in Rachel's favor, accounting for the additional carrying she had done during Daniel's pay cut period. The Clearwater balance, the full $43,218, would be treated as marital property and divided into the asset pool. The Marcus-held funds, which had now been formally valued at $19,812, would be returned to the marital estate and divided equally after accounting for the perjury exposure discount that Daniel's attorney had remarkably agreed to build into the settlement to avoid the motion going further. Rachel's retirement accounts were hers. Daniel's 401k was divided at the portion accumulated during the marriage. Custody of Piper and Owen would be shared on a 2-2-3 rotating schedule, with school enrollment unchanged. She looked at the numbers on the page. She is, by training and by disposition, someone who looks at numbers carefully. She looked at the total asset recovery figure that had been generated by finding one line on a court-mandated disclosure form. $61,442 that she had not known was sitting somewhere in her husband's financial architecture. Money that, had he not been required by law to disclose his assets under oath, she never would have found. She signed the settlement agreement on a Friday in July. The divorce was finalized in August of 2023. She does not talk about the number very often now, not because it is painful to say, though it is, because it is not the number that stays with her. The number is just a number. What stays is the timeline. January 2017, Owen not yet born. His nursery still an empty room with a taped paint sample on the wall, Benjamin Moore Sea Salt. The blue-green color she and Daniel had chosen together on a Sunday afternoon, agreeing that it would look right in the light that came through the north-facing window. He had been building an exit before the nursery was painted. While they were choosing paint colors for a child they were about to bring into the world together, some part of him was already somewhere else. The fourth revelation is the one that arrives quietly and then does not leave. It is not about the money, though it started with the money. It is about what the money was for. Rachel spent months after the divorce trying to answer this question because the answer mattered, not for legal reasons. Those were resolved, for the reason that humans need to understand what happened to them in order to put it somewhere they can carry. She talked to a therapist named Barbara who worked out of an office in Worthington, a suburb on the north side of Columbus. Barbara had worked with a lot of clients navigating financial betrayal in long-term relationships, and she said something in one of their sessions that Rachel came back to repeatedly. Barbara said, "Sometimes people build financial exits not because they are certain they are leaving, but because they are afraid. The account might not have started as a plan. It might have started as a feeling. A feeling that he needed something that was his, that no shared decision could touch. And once it existed, it became the plan because the exit was already built." Rachel thought about this for a long time. She thought about the spring of 2017 when she first noticed the shift in his mood. She thought about the payroll split set up in February, 2 months before she noticed anything. She thought about whether the account came before the feeling or whether the feeling came first, and the account was how it expressed itself. She does not have a clean answer. She suspects the honest answer is that he did not have one either. What she does know is this. For 6 years, she maintained a financial record of their life together that she believed was complete. She was meticulous. She was capable. She was exactly the kind of person who should have caught something like this. And she did not catch it because financial transparency in a marriage is only as complete as what both people choose to disclose. Her system was sound. Her assumptions were not. She also knows, and this is the part of it that required the most time to reach, that the money was not what he took from her. Not really. What he took was 6 years of decisions she made without full information. Decisions about how much to save, how much to spend on childcare versus building her own reserves, whether to push back on that career opportunity in Cincinnati that would have meant a $17,000 salary jump, but required negotiating with Daniel about whether they would relocate. She did not push for the Cincinnati opportunity. She stayed and absorbed more of the household costs during his pay cut. She made every decision as a partner in a shared life. He made every decision as someone who was privately hedging. She has been promoted twice at Hartfield Distribution since the divorce. Her salary is now $88,000. She has maxed out her Roth IRA for the past 2 years. She rebuilt her emergency fund. She opened a low-cost brokerage account and started an index fund position she adds to monthly, the kind of straightforward long-term approach she had always planned to implement once life settled down. Life did not settle down in the way she expected. She settled it herself. Piper is 10 now. Owen is 7. They go to Daniel's every other week on the agreed schedule, and Rachel does not speak poorly of him in front of them because they are children and they need their father to be a person they can love without guilt. This is the hardest discipline she has ever maintained. She maintains it anyway. Daniel lives in an apartment in the short north neighborhood of Columbus. She does not know much about his current financial situation. She does not need to. Her spreadsheet has only one household in it now, and every number in it is a number she knows is there. The Clintonville house sold in the fall of 2023 for $291,000. 18 years of Columbus real estate appreciation, of mortgage payments and minor renovations, and the unremarkable passage of time, had turned a $212,000 purchase into something that meant, after all the accounting was done, a real and meaningful amount of money for both of them. Rachel used her share as the down payment on a smaller house in Bexley, a neighborhood she had always liked for its older trees and walkability. The mortgage is hers. The account it draws from is hers. The bookshelves in the new house are organized in a way Daniel would never have agreed to, alphabetical by author, but with a whole separate section for books she read before she was 25, because she wanted to be able to find them quickly. There is no agreed-upon system. There is just her system. She is not over it in the way people mean when they ask that question. She is not sure over it is the right description for where she is. She is somewhere more honest than over it. She knows what happened. She knows what it cost. She knows what she rebuilt and what is still being rebuilt. She knows that the spreadsheet is not the point and never was, that you can track every number correctly and still be working from an incomplete picture, and that the answer to that is not to trust less, but to understand that some information is only available when someone decides to give it to you. She has not decided Daniel is a villain. That would be simpler, and she has never found simple explanations for complicated people to be very useful. He made choices. He made them over years. He made them quietly. What she knows is that she did not make those choices, that her choices were made in good faith with the information she had, and that good faith is still worth something even when it is not returned. There is a line in the settlement agreement, which she has read only a few times since signing it, that lists the Clearwater account balance in the asset column. $43,218. She sees it differently now than she did the first time, in the attorney's office with the gray rooftops outside and the bus pulling away from the curb. The first time she read it, it felt like proof of what she had lost. Now it reads more like proof of what she found. Evidence that the picture was incomplete, that the record did not match reality, and that she was the one who figured it out. She is an accountant. Finding the discrepancy is what she does. She found it, she dealt with it, she updated the ledger. And she knows, with the particular clarity that comes from having survived something that required all of you, that she is not done yet. She is at the beginning of a financial life that is entirely her own. She knows what every number in it means. She put every number in it herself. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, everything.